Hi, everyone. I'm very excited about sharing a topic that I'm quite passionate about, and it's serving urban students and really helping them to realize their potential through college prep and honors classes. You'll note that my email is on this screen. Please feel free to email me with any questions or any way you think I can help you. So our session outcomes are to look at all of these things. And my goal for you is to actually come out and be able to apply some of these concepts in your own situation, whether you're as a teacher or an administrator. I'm beginning with the national benchmarks because I feel that there are several of them, probably even more, that are appropriate. Um, the church's social teaching, to me, this really means that we need to have our curriculum be socially just. And that's where it's inclusion of students in honors and college prep classes. And the other is engaging and motivating all students. I found that my students that I worked with in an urban school were so competent and so able to engage in whatever challenges we gave them. But they do need support, ancillary services. And that means that your particular school has to create things that you can to help them with skill development. I want to present this as a case study of an urban school that I worked with as a coach. It was a very exciting time. As you can see, we had low SATs for our students who started 2 to 4 years easily below grade level, we found in really all subjects. And we did have 100% high school graduation, 46% college graduation, which was quite remarkable. All our students were in college prep courses and some were in AP classes. I want you to pause the session video now and think about your students in your honors and college prep tracks. Picture them. If you know what the requirements are, make a note of it. If you don't, please take the time to find out. Not right now, whenever you can. But again, as I said, decide on some actions that you can take. I'm beginning with professional development because in my mind, no initiative can be successful without proper training. On the left, you'll see some areas that we worked with. And I put collaborative decisions first because we really did work collaboratively. There was no way these initiatives could take place without faculty administrative collaboration. And ongoing training, that was kind of my role in the whole situation. We worked in PLCs, we found them to be so productive. And then coaching as needed. If you're an administrator, it's really important to realize that this is a 2 to 3 year process. It's not a one-time fix kind of thing. And it really rests on building your teacher and student efficacy. They have to really know that together they can succeed. These are the keys to our success. These are things we agreed upon. And it may look different in your school, but we started with organization, literacy, lesson planning, and a concept I'll talk about more of acceleration, as well as SEL. So we came up with school-wide discipline guidelines, academic guidelines, and we did this as a faculty that we could agree to that would be applicable in every subject area. We looked at our school-wide testing, and we really focused not just on our SAT scores, but on classroom performance, on observation, on all kinds of different areas to develop this class structure that would be applicable across the board. One of the things we really focused on was keeping things simple. We did not have, dozens of initiatives going on at the same time. From our analysis of our testing, we saw that literacy was a huge area that needed improvement across the board in every subject area. We used strategies that are tried and true, that we knew worked. Technology was a piece of it. Google Classroom was a way to help our students keep themselves organized. Every assignment was in there, just so students would know where everything was. They also did use a planner, some of them electronic, some of them hard copy. They were all required to take notes, and we did require those notes to be handwritten. Our lesson structure, again, was quite simple. We began every class with the learning outcome, making sure that students knew what the expectation for that class was and what they needed to leave the class with. We closed with a summary to kind of pull all the things together. We worked in cycles of 10 to 15-minute presentation, continuous check for understanding, making sure the students were understanding the concept, and then having the opportunity to practice the concept. We really based a lot of what we did on Schmoker's book, which was really based on educational research. Now, this concept of acceleration, we realized we were doing it without even realizing it. We kept advancing in the content area for each class. Otherwise, students would not be able to complete this 4-year course of instruction. But they did have, some of them, huge skill gaps. So we had to figure out how to close those gaps. And so in our school, some of it was done during class. Technology could help with small group instruction. Students could practice things that they needed to do, which would really be individualized for them. We also used an extra period after school. And that period was for extra help or studying or different kinds of ways that students needed to utilize them. We had to do summer assignments. Otherwise, this would not work. So students were given probably, I would say, if you spaced it out over a week, a couple hours a day, and we did it for a 8-week period. We also used strategies that focused on the students. Now, of course, SEL is so critical to this because our students had to believe that they could succeed. Community building was, gathering in the church and having a prayer and an inspirational talk very quickly, a couple times a month, maybe 15, 20 minutes. Student voice is extremely important. They needed to know that we heard what they were going through, we heard what their needs were, and we did give them choices. Major assignments generally had a choice component to them. We needed to help them change the story and really believe that their mind could grow, that their skills, their capacities, their brain plasticity was enabling them to grow in their skills and abilities. Academic courage was a real game changer. I will talk about that a little bit more. And assessments. The assessments were application of knowledge, not, gotcha kind of assessments. We wanted to evaluate our students. We were not looking to fail them. And hence we had a program and actually procedures for test retakes. Now, this courage in the classroom was really important to us because, and we shared this with students and teachers. Students who have academic courage need to be able to persevere in the face of difficulty and fear. Most of our students had looked at themselves as failures academically. Confidence, by contrast, are those students who are successful, and we had them too. They could persevere and they weren't afraid, they knew they could do it. But the research that Martin conducted showed that starting with academic confidence was able to get results where students could be succeeding and eventually would move to academic confidence. we tried to shift the students' focus onto things that they could actually do and empower them to know that, yes, we can take these skills, we can do these actions, and we can begin to succeed. And when teachers and students actually believe this, the results are impressive. Now, these are some techniques to help them, especially with executive function: setting goals, examining what are the resources I have available to me, teacher resources, peer resources, outside resources, planning how to achieve a goal, and managing the steps to get to that point. Of course, this took student effort, focus, and self-control. Again, things we tried to build by structuring our discipline system and by structuring our class presentation so that they could start seeing the patterns and start building these patterns and knowing that they could succeed. Now, I'd like to just pause the video again for this activity. Now, I left it up as we did it as a school. You see there's individual, partner, and group activities, but start with the individual and reflect on a time when you did need academic courses and what courage and what helped you through this. And then think about some of the strategies and kinds of formative assessments you could use with your students to bring them to this point. I came across this book by McTighe and Silver that really talked about what we were trying to do, and that is teaching the students to think, one of the most difficult things that we can do. It hinged on these 7 areas: conceptualizing, summarizing, comparing, reading, hypothesizing, representation, perspective. These were all skills that the students needed to be able to succeed in our program. And I just want to share some of the resources that we use. These are not, they're very simple, basic. There are hundreds of them online. One of them was the FRAIR model that we used for concept development. And we found this worked in quite a few subject areas, giving examples of the concept and non-examples of the concept to students, and really letting them look at them. So combining those 2 things and then having them develop characteristics and facts about the concept, and then coming up with a definition. By going through this process, students own that concept. Cornell Notes, as I told you, we required all students to take notes. We liked this format. This was an agreed upon format in every teacher. It worked in every class, even math and science. Cues, questions, or it could be mathematical formulas or scientific formulas would go on the left. Students would then take their notes and conclude every class with a summary. Now, this was important because they weren't just sitting there writing. They needed to think to be able to do the notes this way. And again, we had to teach them. Teachers would say, this will go on the left side of your notes. These go on the right side of your notes. Obviously, compare and contrast, that's a tool we use right from kindergarten on up. It's a great tool to help students to really define their concept. Argumentation was something else that we really did in a lot of our classes. And using line of reasoning, having them develop claims, reasons that these claims are true, gathering evidence and coming up with a solution. This was an activity they really did excel in. Our students could think. It was the skills that they needed to have built up. And so reading for understanding, hence our literacy focus. We really looked at that. Perspective taking. Very often, even us as adults, our perspectives are so narrow. So we wanted to open that up for them. Take the perspectives, see it from different viewpoints. Being able to analyze what they read, then taking several pieces and synthesizing them. Again, excuse me, I need to put that back. A difficult skill, but one they were able to master. And then creating representations. So this is just a simple graphic representation, that started them with their argumentation. The argument could be in the center, their reasons around it, and then keep building this out. as they go. This was also something that seemed to be effective. Again, there's many different formats for this. But you can see that we utilize the concepts that were in this, this book by McTighe and Silver, and it really did work for us. Now, I just have to talk about this because as academic coach, I was a teacher, and this was just my joy, teaching AP seminar and AP research. The reason I love this class is because there are no matching, picking out kinds of tests where they're so limited in multiple choice. They had 4, actually it was 5 evaluations. They did 2 projects, which had both a written and a presentation component. And so that was 4, and then they took a test. Everything was written in essay form, so they could actually succeed. Our first year, we were ecstatic because we had about a 90% pass rate on this. So it was just a wonderful experience. AP is very open to having their classes be, ones that are available to a variety of students, because students really don't know their ability unless they're challenged and supported. And so we really were excited about the success that we had with our classes. Our students took 3, we had 3 junior classes, 3 senior classes in AP. As I said, not everyone was in them, but the students that were really were excited by this opportunity. We also did something, and I'm not quite sure of the success of this. We did open up 1 class to our sophomores, and we taught that class to all sophomores as an AP class. It's very difficult for them. It had to be modified for them, but we thought it would just give them a taste of what they could accomplish. So this is a video that I'd like you to see. Sorry, the top title got cut off a little. Defining implicit bias and racial anxiety. It's a very quick video, but think about, what is implicit bias? How do you define it? And how do you feel when you encounter a situation of bias? Is that the proverbial elephant in the living room?
Implicit bias is the embedding of negative stereotypes and associations in our brains around groups. When we talk about identity difference, what we're talking about is a set of hierarchies when it comes to race or gender or sexuality. We take in so many culture cues over our lifespan that help us create these hierarchies of human value. What implicit bias is the embedding of those stereotypes in relationship to a hierarchy that operate in very quick automatic periods in our brain. Racial anxiety is the feeling that we have in the middle of an interracial interaction when race drops into the conversation. So if you were white and all of a sudden the conversation turns towards race, you may worry that whatever you say next will make you be perceived as a racist. If you are of color and race drops in the conversation, you are worried that whatever comes next may invalidate your life experience and that you won't be seen fairly or truthfully. When that happens, your executive brains, both executive brains, are literally shutting down. They're going into fight or flight mode, and you cannot have a meaningful conversation or interaction when both brains are butting up against each other. So our answer to that typically is avoidance, right? We run away from the conversation. The other alternative is to build up the intensity of that fight situation and go at it. We believe that understanding what underlies racial anxiety, understanding that race is not just a social construct, but also a physiological and an emotional construct, is something that is critical to helping us move forward and having more meaningful conversations around race.
Sorry about that. I got into it and couldn't get out of it. Um, this this is a real, I think, game changer. The addition of racial anxiety that Ms. Johnson brings in is really important to us. We have to understand that if we hear, say, a racial slur, or there's some racial conflict in our classroom, that there is an emotional component here. You may feel like you want to run away, and the people involved in it may feel like they want to, fight. So it's important that teachers understand what's underlying this, and so that they then feel confident that they can deal with it. And that's another video that I did want to share with you. And this is by Stevenson. It's a little bit different than the one you just saw. It's about 4 minutes. And he really, one of the things that I think is important, which is why I'm sharing this with you ahead of time, is think about it as you're watching it, is that PD is really important for teachers. They have to understand what it is and how it can dehumanize people. And this is not, it's not like we're bad because we have implicit biases. It's just the way we all grow up, and it's just kind of a natural thing. People who are alike tend to want to be together. So we have to, first of all, there's no blame here. We have to get out of that blame mode when we're working with this, and then get skills that we know that can help us. And I thought that these were very interesting that Stevenson presented. And he looks at seeing the situation accurately. Sometimes when your emotions play into things, you don't see them that accurately. And then using mindfulness, getting your mind settled, getting yourself in a space where you can rationalize, and then help all the participants to come to a healthy conclusion.
So professional development is a direction we think of as potentially addressing some of these issues around implicit bias and racial dehumanization, where folks are unconsciously using stereotypes. So we've been talking about this issue of racial literacy, which is this ability to read, recast, and resolve racially stressful encounters. So when these moments occur, we know that peers, that teachers, adults are stressed by the differences in front of them. So if I don't see a child in front of me, who am I actually seeing? And the stress about being able to navigate those moments are the concerns that we have, where people are unprepared and not willing to engage this racial moment as a racial elephant in the room, but use avoidance as a strategy. So there are assumptions about what we make. Very quickly, I'll say that racial encounters matter even more than sort of symbols, ideology. We approach race as an ideological reality as opposed to what we're going to do if we only have a minute to make a decision. Believing in social justice is not the same as how I'm going to be just if I only have a second or a minute to make a decision. Another issue is that racial stress matters differently than other forms of stresses. And so in Walter's work, the idea of overreaction and underreaction to a racial moment is a key issue. Legal dismantling of racism won't address the emotional trauma that comes from these moments. And so we have to think of strategies that are going to address well-being, physical health, and learning. Sometimes people approach this as an issue of character, and we don't hire algebra teachers because they're good people. We hire them because they can count well. And in the same way, we want folks who are navigating racial moments to be skilled at dealing with these issues. Just because they're good does not make them competent. Schools are often places we learn how not to talk about race, but I'm very hopeful that if we see stress in these moments, it's different than curing systemic discrimination. If we go to bed every night expecting to cure systemic discrimination, we're probably depressed most evenings. But the reality of stress is something we can see in other people, we can feel it in ourselves, and we can do something about it. And we think this is linked to addressing issues of implicit bias. So the ability to read, how accurately am I seeing a racial moment going on right in front of me, is a skill. 2, how well am I able to notice my stress and reduce that stress in the context of that moment? And 3rd, how well can I assertively address and resolve the issue that's not an underreaction or overreaction? So the theory around this is sort of this notion of racial encounter, coping, appraisal, and socialization theory, which is saying the more socialization young people get, educators get, to understand a racial moment is occurring, the more strategies they use to actually not run away from those moments, but actually engage them, and in some respects activate my understanding of bias. That it reduces the stress in those moments by improving one's sense of confidence. So I don't run, I can stay. But it takes practice. The problem is racial literacy takes practice. And I know some of you are saying practice. We're talking about practice. Yes, we are absolutely talking about practice. And the ways that we go about this include storytelling and a few other things. Mindfulness, racial mindfulness in the moment. We can teach teachers how to navigate these moments, to see their biases, to question them. The focus in this is based on a proverb that we use. The lion story will never be known as long as the hunter is the one to tell it. And the question is, how do we get young people, families of boys and babies being able to tell their stories?
Yay, I got that one. Okay, so we've looked at a lot of information, and I hope I didn't go too quickly, but I do want to emphasize a few things. First of all, beginning with the Catholic school benchmarks, they are wonderful tools to really create programs in your school that are just for all students and that really focus on high academic achievement. And then the other is to really look at who's in your school, look at those demographics, and really examine who are in your AP classes, in your honors classes. What are the guidelines for them? Is it standardized testing? Well, you could see by our standardized test scores, our students wouldn't have made it if they were not in our school. I mean, obviously we had a different kind of school because all of our students, really, most of our students, I should say, were not academically successful. So look at those guidelines for how they are entered into the class. We met as teachers and we met as faculties, and we looked at students' work. We looked at, some of the kinds of things about students and their perseverance and those areas. And we did invite them to the classes that we thought. But we also left an opening for student advocacy. Like a student could come to us and say, I really want to be in this or that honors classes. I had that happen several times to me in AP seminar. And in my mind, if a student wanted to be in that class, to me, that was a plus. And, I could work and support that student through that class. I think the other important area to look at here is how you're structuring your classes. This was something that we looked at as a faculty. Again, it's so important to do this as a whole school administration and faculty. There are certain things, and I believe that this works in any high school. I think any high school, the discipline structure has to be very clear and fairly applied. Again, this is an area where many students are disciplined differently. We have a lot of research about this. So again, this is another area to examine in your school. to see how this works. The other is just basic class structure. We wanted to have student-centered teachers, student-centered classes. And very often, and this is not easy. I mean, this, as I said, this takes a few years to implement, but we want to make sure that our students are really, given the best opportunity that they can get and learn in ways that are really geared to how they learn. So those are some of the things that we used as structures to do that. I think, again, looking at when we developed our lesson structure and all of those, we looked at Schmoker's book on Keep It Simple. It was just a very research-focused book, and it was, the faculty loved it because he really broke things down into overall, and then he went into every subject area: math, science, social studies, language arts. So he really explained how it could work in every subject area, which was very helpful for our teachers. I think agreeing on certain strategies that work. We can't expect our teachers to be managing, dozens of strategies. Ones that are really clearly supported by instruction and by research. And the other piece of it is also that as we're working with our students, we need to constantly see which students need our support to succeed, and how can we set up structures that will support these students, and then implement these structures, because that's a very critical piece of it. We cannot put students into a situation where they're going to continue to fail. As I said, academic courage for us, that paper was a real game changer because it gave our students hope. But they could say, we can change your story. We can change this and help you to succeed academically and make you feel good about yourself. And again, SEL was a big part of it. And being in a Catholic school is such a great advantage because we can really use our faith, use our prayer, reflections, inspirations to really keep ourselves grounded and together as a learning community, a culture of learning and achievement. And then I think that it's important to look at ways that you're teaching that will focus on concept building. We all know that there's an internet out there, and my goodness, within, I think, under a minute, most kids can find any information you want. I remember a few times I was teaching and I would say, I can't remember exactly what that detail was on that particular thing, but I'll check it out and get back to you. And a student had the answer. If they had a Chromebook in their hand, they had the answer. So I think it's important that we help them to know, what do you do with all this knowledge? And even finding out, one of the things we did in our AP seminar class was, how do you know it's true? Well, if it's online, it's true. Okay, so that took a little bit of work. So as you can see, these kinds of things can really open students up and really help them to be the people that God created them to be. And that, to me, I think, is the most exciting thing that we as educators can feel and think about. So I'm asking you, as you looked at this video, to please look at the data in your particular school. Get access to that data and look at the strengths and areas for improvement. Schools that are accredited, you've already done a lot of that work, so you know what those things are. And then target a focus area. Talk to everybody and look at whatever you can do to start implementing some of these ideas. And of course, nothing can get implemented without an action plan. So we want to do that. Now, if you're a teacher, you say, oh, what can I do? I'm just a teacher. But you know what? Get together with 2 or 3 of your colleagues, partner up with people, take maybe a subject area and see if you can get people excited about doing this kind of work and to help every student in your school to succeed and be the best that they can possibly be. And one of the things too about working with urban students or students who have been underserved is keep in mind that this is a life changer for them and their families. And so this is important work. And this is why we're in Catholic education. And I know that as Catholic educators, you want to do God's work and you want to succeed with it. And of course, since we're doing his work, he always blesses us. So thank you for your time. And as I said before, my email is on the first slide. It's mhobby, HOBBIE 31 at gmail.com. I'd be happy to hear from you with your questions, with any of your concerns, feedback, if you have about this. That would really be helpful to me also. So thank you very much. Have a good day. And I hope that you continue to have a successful year in your work.